Welcome to Movie Bites. Today we're revisiting Love and Basketball, the classic that gave us a baller love story and a man-child named Quincy who folded faster than a dollar store lawn chair. We're breaking down the real names and ages of the cast: Monica, Quincy, Camille, and Sidra. And believe me, some of these post-movie moves will leave you just as shook as Quincy's commitment issues. First up, we have the young version of Quincy McCall, played by Glendon Chapman. Quincy was that boy next door who loved to shoot hoops with his friends, but he wasn't just your average kid. He came from a well-off family, living in a big house with his mom and dad, his dad being a professional basketball player for the Clippers. But despite that luxury, Quincy wasn't spoiled. His pops made sure to keep him grounded, tough, and focused. That toughness did spill over a little though, especially when it came to Monica, the girl from next door. He could be rough around the edges with her, but let's be honest, it probably had more to do with that awkward early crush energy. It reminds me of when I was young. There was this boy who had a crush on me, and he would stay on my case nonstop. Kids, right? Still, the character development in Quincy was dope, especially that sweet moment when he awkwardly asks Monica to be his girlfriend. It was honest, it was innocent, and it hit you right in the nostalgia. Glendon Chapman was just 14 years old when he stepped into this role, and he nailed it. Before Love and Basketball, he had already popped up on shows like In the House and The Jamie Foxx Show, giving hints of the talent he had in store. But after Love and Basketball, Glendon's acting career didn't take off the way some might have expected. He didn't land any major roles, but every now and then, he acknowledges the impact this film had on his life and how proud he is to have been part of it. Today, Glendon is 39 years old, and for many of us, he'll always be that young boy with the wild jump shot and a soft spot for the girl next door. Moving on, we've got the young girl from next door, Monica Wright, played by none other than Kyla Pratt. Now, when we first meet Monica, she's not in the kitchen with her mom or playing with dolls like you might expect for a girl her age. Nah, Monica was cut from a different cloth. She pulled up to that basketball court, hair tied back, sneakers on, ready to hoop with Quincy and his two homies. And not just hoop, dominate. Most girls would have turned back when the boys tried to play her off. But Monica? She went full throttle, outplaying them right there on the court. And of course, Quincy didn't like that one bit. Dude got salty, shoved her to the ground, but Monica didn't flinch. She stood up, dusted herself off, and let everyone know she didn't come to play, she came to win. That fire, that competitive spirit, that was Monica all the way through. And just when we think she's just some random girl from the block, boom, we find out she's Quincy's next door neighbor. Game on. Kyla Pratt, who brought young Monica to life, was just 14 years old at the time, but already she was a rising star. She'd already appeared in the Babysitters Club and had made her mark alongside Eddie Murphy in Dr. Dolittle. You could tell even then, she had that spark. After Love and Basketball, Kyla kept that momentum going strong. She shined in Dr. Dolittle too, brought laughs in Fat Albert, and kept showing up in films that let her flex her talent. But let's talk TV. If you were around in the early 2000s, you know her from the hit sitcom One-on-One. That show was everything, and Kyla owned that role. Today, she's 38 years old, married, and a proud mom of two beautiful daughters. And let's be real, she's still glowing. 38 looks real good on her, and Kyla remains a true gem in the culture. When Monica Wright grew up, she took her hustle to the Crenshaw High School basketball team, fierce, focused, and still carrying the weight of everything she'd been through. And nobody could have brought that grown-up version of Monica to life better than Sanaa Lathan. Now let's be real. Monica didn't just have skills on the court. She had heart, but she also had pain. It's rough growing up in a household where nobody really sees you. Her mom wanted her to be more ladylike. Less aggressive, more delicate. In other words, less her. And her dad? Woo. Let's just say he wasn't exactly handing out affirmations either. Monica wasn't some spoiled kid playing ball for fun. She was grinding hard, trying to earn that UCLA scholarship. But that temper, that deep fire in her, it kept messing things up. She wasn't just mad at the refs, she was mad at the world. Mad at how folks kept trying to box her in. And Quincy? Man, don't get me started. Watching it now, you can feel how much Monica loved him. You can see her trying to fight for that relationship when he wasn't giving her the same energy back. She carried all that emotion like a pro, and you just wanted her to catch a break. Sanaa Lathan brought every ounce of that pain, strength, and vulnerability to the screen. She was 29 at the time, and she nailed it. Before Love and Basketball, she kicked off her career with Drive in 1997, then came Blade in 98. By 99, she was stacking hits: Life, The Wood, The Best Man. Sanaa wasn't just acting, she was making statements. And she didn't stop there. She gave us unforgettable performances in films like Disappearing Acts and Brown Sugar, and she's held it down on TV too, always elevating whatever project she's in. Today, Sanaa Lathan is 53 years old and still shining, still thriving. And no matter what role she takes on next, for so many of us, Sanaa will always be Monica Wright, that girl who showed us what it means to love hard, fight harder, and never let the world define who you are. Up next, we gotta talk about Monica's mom, Miss Camille Wright, played by the legendary Alfre Woodard. Now listen, I know some of y'all might hate me for what I'm about to say, but hear me out. This isn't a dig, it's just real talk. Not all mothers get it right. And Camille? Woo, she was far from perfect. She was that classic housewife, elegant, composed, always proper, but also a woman who dimmed her own light. She put her dreams on pause to hold down the home, and somewhere in the process, she lost sight of how to really show up for her daughter. Monica was out here chasing basketball dreams, earning scholarships, and her mom? She just couldn't see it. To Camille, Monica was always a tomboy who needed to soften up, be more like her sister. Can you imagine? Your daughter has 1,000 games and you only show up to 2? Come on now. But to be fair, she wasn't all bad. I mean, she did give Monica a necklace for her school dance. A small moment of tenderness, and yeah, I've got mixed feelings about that. Parenting isn't easy, and maybe Camille was just doing the best she knew how. But then there was that one scene, the moment that flipped everything. Monica's sitting there, heartbroken over Quincy, and Camille finally tells her daughter to go fight for her man. That was the first time we saw her drop the judgment and just be a mother, woman to woman. And that hit deep. As for Alfre Woodard, the queen who brought all of that to life, she was already a powerhouse before Love and Basketball. Personally, I loved her in Crooklyn. She brought so much heart to that role. And her resume? Please. If we start naming everything she's done on TV and film, we'll be here all day. From dramas to biopics, Alfre has done it all and collected a trophy shelf full of awards along the way. Today, she's 72 years old and still going strong, a true blessing to the culture. Alfre Woodard doesn't just play roles, she gives them soul. And whether you loved or hated Camille Wright, you felt her, and that's the mark of a master at work. Every father should support his daughter, be her first fan, her strongest backbone. But that father? That wasn't Nathan Wright. Played by Lennox, Nathan came across as that typical old-school dad who thought basketball wasn't something his daughter should be wasting time on. In fact, he barely saw Monica's passion for the game. And to make matters worse, he always seemed to just nod along with whatever Monica's mom said. When Camille shut Monica down, Nathan followed suit, quiet, passive, absent where it mattered most. He was the kind of man who made his wife a housewife, and you get the feeling he didn't exactly believe in empowering the women in his life. Not his wife, not even his daughter. And let's be honest, Lennox didn't get much screen time in Love and Basketball, but the few moments he was there, it was telling. He could have been the balance in that household. He could have been the one to say, "Baby girl, you can be anything." But he didn't. And when Monica finally made it, when she rose up and became a successful baller, then he showed up smiling, proud, riding off her shine. That part stung, because every daughter deserves a father who believes in her from day one, not just when the cameras come out. Now as for Lennox, he was 36 when he played Nathan, and long before Love and Basketball, he'd already made waves in the 1991 classic, The Five Heartbeats. You might also remember him in Mo Money, Clockers, and Get on the Bus, all films that defined the 90s in their own way. Since then, Harry has built a serious resume. He's been in more than 40 films and TV shows. On the small screen, he's held it down in Dollhouse, And of course, The Blacklist, a role that proved he's not just a background player, he's a force. Today, he's 60 years old and still active in the game. Whether he's playing a government suit or a conflicted father, Harry Lennox always brings depth to his characters. But to a generation of us who grew up on Love and Basketball, he'll always be remembered as the dad who could have done better. If ever there was someone who matched Monica's fire and ambition, it was Quincy McCall, played by none other than Omar Epps. Now, where do I even begin with Q? First off, let's talk about how this was the second time Omar Epps played a character named Quincy. His debut role back in 1992's Juice also had him answering to that same name, like fate knew this role was meant for him again. In Love and Basketball, Quincy came from a privileged background. His dad was a professional basketball player, so he was raised in a house full of trophies and expectations. But Quincy wasn't just coasting. By high school, he was a rising star on the court. The boy could hoop, and he knew it. The swagger, immaculate. The charm off the charts. The girls, all over him. And he carried it like a man who knew he had the juice. But let's be real, sometimes that ego showed too much. He'd brush Monica off like she didn't matter. And as someone rooting for them from the jump, that hurt. Quincy acted like a man-child at times, especially that scene where he made Monica choose between him and her dream. Like, really? If you truly love someone, you don't make them pick between you and what defines them. That was one of the lowest points, and it stung. Quincy always seemed to take out his frustrations on Monica, like he was trying to prove something, when all she ever did was ride for him. But credit where it's due, Omar Epps nailed this role. He gave Quincy layers. You saw the charm, the pain, the pride, and the immaturity. And by that point in his career, Omar had already stacked up an impressive resume. Juice, Higher Learning, The Mod Squad, The Wood. He was on fire. So landing this role wasn't luck, it was earned. At the time of filming, Omar was 27 years old, and that on-screen chemistry with Sanaa Lathan? Oh, that wasn't acting. They were actually dating in real life. And honestly, I wish they had stayed together and had babies, because the love was real. But hey, that's just my wishful thinking. In real life, Omar went on to marry Keisha Spivey from the R&B group Total, and together they've built a beautiful family with 2 kids. Today, he's 51 years old and still making moves in Hollywood. Whether it's on the big screen or TV, Omar Epps continues to shine. And for many of us, he'll always be Quincy, the baller with talent, ego, and just enough vulnerability to make you never forget him. Now let's talk about Zeke McCall, Quincy's father, played by the deep-voiced, no-nonsense Dennis Haysbert. Zeke was that classic man-of-the-house figure, the type who stood tall, provided for his family, and expected nothing but greatness from his son. He had Quincy when he was just 19 years old, which meant life hit him fast. But he did what most young men fear. He stepped up. Married Quincy's mom, held down the family, gave her the lifestyle most would dream of. But let's not sugarcoat it. He was unfaithful. While the house was big and the bills were paid, his loyalty had cracks. And when Quincy found out, it changed everything. Still, Zeke wasn't all bad. In fact, he dropped some serious gems on his son. One that stood out: can't should never be in a man's vocabulary. That right there? That was his whole mentality. He wanted Quincy to believe that he could achieve the impossible, not just in basketball, but in life. Zeke had seen what the league had to offer. He made it to the pros, sure, but deep down, he knew something was missing. He never went to college, and even though he had the fame and the jerseys, he always wondered what it would have been like to get that degree, to live life a little differently. That's why he pushed Quincy so hard, not just to ball, but to think, to learn, to build something bigger than basketball. Dennis Haysbert, the man behind Zeke, was 46 at the time and brought that role to life with so much depth. Before Love and Basketball, he had already made a name for himself in Major League and had popped up in classic TV shows in the 80s and 90s like Laverne and Shirley, Off the Rack, and The Young and the Restless. After Love and Basketball, Dennis continued to shine, whether on screen or behind the mic. You've definitely heard his unmistakable voice. He's done tons of voiceover work and is basically the All-State guy now. And of course, who could forget his powerful role as President David Palmer on 24? Today, Dennis Haysbert is 70 years old and still thriving. Whether he's acting, voicing characters, or commanding the screen with his presence, he remains a legend in the game. Behind every successful man, there's always a woman standing quietly behind him, sometimes smiling, sometimes crying behind closed doors. And in Love and Basketball, that woman was Nona McCall, brought to life so beautifully by Debbie Morgan. Nona had all the things we're told define happiness: nice cars, a big house, jewelry that sparkles brighter than the future most of us dream about. But none of that could hide the truth. Her husband, Zeke, was unfaithful. It's one thing to feel alone. It's another to feel alone in luxury. That's a different kind of silence. Still, Nona never let that pain spill onto Quincy. She held her head high, played her role with grace, and when her son needed wisdom, she gave it. That scene where she warns him about the women who'll chase him when he makes it to the league? That was more than motherly advice. That was a quiet scream from a woman who knew exactly what that looked like, who had lived through being the one waiting at home while her man played superstar in someone else's arms. Debbie Morgan was 44 at the time she took on the role of Nona, and by then she had already carved out her space as a legend in Black television. Most people knew her best for her Emmy-winning role on All My Children, but her resume didn't stop there. She was in Generations, Good Times, What's Happening, Boston Public, Charmed. Honestly, we'd be here all day listing her credits. She brought heart, poise, and power to every single role. Today, Debbie Morgan is 68 years old. She's lived a full life, divorced 3 times, married 4, and she's still out here, still acting, still inspiring. Up next, we have Lena Wright, played by the always radiant Regina Hall. Lena was Monica's big sister, and if you lined them up side by side, they couldn't be more different. While Monica was all about basketball, sweat, and sneakers, Lena was about lipstick, curls, and everything feminine. She was the kind of girl who lived for a good outfit, some lip gloss, and the latest gossip. But even with their differences, Lena really loved her sister. And that love showed in one of the most heartwarming moments of the film. When the school dance came around, Lena didn't just let Monica show up in her usual tomboy style. She hooked her up with a college guy and gave her a full-on makeover. And let's be honest, when Monica walked down those stairs, it was pure magic. For the first time, we saw her not just as the tough baller, but as a beautiful young woman. Lena made that moment happen. Regina Hall was 30 when she played Lena, and at the time, she was just stepping into the world of film. She had made her debut a year earlier in The Best Man. While she didn't have the biggest role in Love and Basketball, Regina made sure we remembered her. And she didn't stop there. After the film, Regina went on to become a household name, cementing her legacy in the Scary Movie series and delivering in roles in Paid in Full, Death at a Funeral, Think Like a Man, and Girls Trip, just to name a few. On the small screen, she's been just as powerful, appearing in shows like Ally McBeal, Real Husbands of Hollywood, and Black Monday. Today, Regina Hall is 54 and still lighting up Hollywood with her charm, wit, and timeless beauty. Whether she's bringing laughter or emotion to the screen, she remains a force to be reckoned with and a true gem in the culture. Now let's talk about Jason, Monica's spring dance date, the guy Lena wouldn't stop pushing her toward. Played by Boris Kodjoe, Jason was that tall, charming, good-looking type. You know, the kind of guy every high school girl would want to be seen with at the big dance. But let's be real, he was a little surface level. Still, for that moment, he was exactly who Monica needed to step into a different light. That scene wasn't just about the dress or the date. It was about Monica realizing she could show up, own her femininity, and be seen in a way she never had before. Boris Kodjoe was 27 when he played Jason. Love and Basketball was actually his film debut, and even though the role was small, he made an impression. There was something about him that said, "You'll be seeing more of me." And we did. Boris went on to star in films like Brown Sugar and Medea's Family Reunion, and he really made a name for himself with his comedic side on Real Husbands of Hollywood. Plus, we can't forget that he and his real-life wife, Nicole Ari Parker, were one of those couples everyone rooted for. Today, Boris is 52, still married to Nicole, and still carving out his space in the industry. It's kind of cool to look back and think about how he started as the dance date. and grew into a leading man with a genuine, grounded presence. Because sometimes those little roles, they end up being the first steps towards something much bigger. When Quincy became a superstar in high school, it was like the floodgates opened. Every girl wanted a piece of him. And one of those girls was Shawnee, played by none other than Gabrielle Union. Shawnee was a bold one, straight out of Crenshaw and not afraid to shoot her shot, literally and figuratively. This girl had a serious crush on Q, and she wasn't about to keep it a secret. She was ready to give all of herself to him. And she even had the nerve to write a note asking Monica to pass it along to Quincy. A note! Can you imagine being in love with someone and having to hand them a letter from another girl trying to throw herself at him? Monica must have been ready to explode. Shawnee was basically out here trying to send her coochie through the mail. Gabrielle Union was 28 at the time and already carving out her place in the acting world. Her career started back in the 90s, making dozens of appearances on TV sitcoms like Saved by the Bell and Seventh Heaven. Even though she didn't get much screen time in Love and Basketball, she didn't need it. That same year, Gabrielle owned the screen as Isis in Bring It On, a role that catapulted her into stardom. From there, she went on to star in Two Can Play That Game, Deliver Us from Eva, Breaking All the Rules, Think Like a Man, and countless other films that helped shape the early 2000s Black Hollywood scene. Today, Gabrielle Union is 52 years old and still thriving. She's not only a powerhouse actress, but also a fierce advocate, a producer, and an author. Gabrielle Union continues to inspire, and she's nowhere near done. And then we have Felicia, yet another lady that was all over Quincy. Man, Q couldn't catch a break if he tried. Felicia was portrayed by Char Jackson, and she was that girl from the block, one of the many that Q was casually hooking up with. Now, here's the thing. Quincy didn't even want his mom catching him with Felicia. That alone tells you what kind of vibe she was bringing. And when I say Char Jackson brought that scene to life, I mean she really got into character. That kissing scene, well, it was intense. And just when things were heating up, guess who was peeping through the window? Monica. The pain she must have felt, seeing the guy you love all over someone else, like you weren't even in the picture. The things Quincy put this girl through, man, it was tough to watch. Char Jackson was 24 at the time, and by then she had already been doing her thing in film and TV. She had roles in CB4 and Good Burger, and she was popping up in some of the biggest Black sitcoms of the 90s, hanging with Mr. Cooper, The Parenthood, and of course, Moesha. After Love and Basketball, Char never really locked down any major film roles. It seemed like she chose to step back and focus more on family, and that's a respectable move. But recently, she made headlines for something truly inspiring, a personal health journey that led to a big weight loss transformation. She even made a cameo in Good Burger 2, bringing things full circle for fans who've loved her since the beginning. Today, Char Jackson is 48 years old, married, and a proud mom of 4 kids. She might not be front and center in Hollywood anymore, but she's still standing tall and still remembered for every role she owned. Up next, we have Sidra O'Neill, played by Erica Ringor, the fierce, no-nonsense baller from UCLA. When we first meet Sidra, she's already established on the women's basketball team, and let's just say she doesn't roll out the welcome mat for Monica. In fact, she makes it crystal clear Monica's not about to take her spot. But life has its plot twists, and when Sidra gets injured, that's exactly what happens. Monica steps up, and surprisingly, what starts off as tension turns into respect. Eventually, the two become teammates in the truest sense, and I'll admit, Sidra grew on me. She was tough, but she was real. Erica Ringor played that role with attitude, confidence, and just the right amount of edge. She was 26 at the time, and from what I can tell, Love and Basketball was her breakout moment. I hadn't seen her in anything major before that, but this film clearly opened up some career doors. After that, she popped up in smaller roles, films like Go for Broke 2, and even made a memorable appearance in R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet rap opera series. On TV, she's shown up in shows like Law and Order, Bosch Legacy, and CSI New York. These days, Erica Ringor is 51, and while she's not constantly in the spotlight, she still makes appearances, especially on red carpets, where she reminds us that once a baller, always a baller. Every basketball movie needs a coach. The voice in the locker room, the pressure on the sidelines, the one who pushes you when no one else will. And in Love and Basketball, that coach was none other than Coach Davis, portrayed by Christine Dunford. Now, rumor had it, Coach Davis didn't like freshmen. And if there was one person who got the full weight of that myth, it was Monica. Sidra came at her with all kinds of scare tactics, making it sound like Coach was out to break her spirit. But Monica? She kept her head down and her game sharp. What we later found out was something real. The coach was only hard on players she saw potential in. If Coach Davis was on your case, it wasn't because she didn't like you. It was because she believed you had something special. And if she wasn't on your case, that meant she didn't think you had it. Simple as that. It was tough love, but the kind that builds champions. Christine Dunford brought that role to life with the kind of edge and sincerity that only a seasoned actor can deliver. Before Love and Basketball, she had already put in work with roles in Reversal of Fortune, 1990, Since You've Been Gone, 1998, and hit shows like Ally McBeal and Chicago Hope. She had the range and knew exactly how to command a scene. Now, while her exact age during filming isn't widely listed, judging by her credits and presence, it's safe to say she was in her mid to late 40s. After the film, Christine continued to do what she does best, popping up in guest roles across detective and medical dramas, always adding that special something to every project. Today, she's likely in her late 60s, and whether or not she's still on your screen, one thing's for sure, she'll always be Coach Davis. If you thought we were done with the ladies that Quincy hooked up with, then you clearly forgot about Carrie. Played by the talented Monica Calhoun, Carrie was yet another woman caught in Quincy's superstar orbit. When things weren't going so well between Q and Monica, Quincy acted like a total man-child, and instead of working it out, he just kept inviting more drama into his life. Carrie was one of those drama-filled chapters. She wasn't just some random girl. Carrie got a full-on sensual hug from Q right in front of Monica. Like, seriously, your girl is standing right there and you're wrapped up with someone else? Quincy was wild for that. Monica Calhoun, who was 29 at the time, brought her signature grace and charm to the role. Even though it was minor, she made it memorable. And if she looked familiar, that's because she had already delivered one of her most iconic roles 2 years earlier in The Players Club. She also starred in The Best Man, and later returned for The Best Man Holiday in 2013 and The Best Man, The Final Chapters in 2022. She's been part of films like Gang of Roses and several indie projects, and held down the lead role in the web series Diary of a Single Mom. Monica Calhoun makes acting look effortless, but her real life has been anything but easy. In 2000, her life changed forever when she gave birth to her son, who was born blind. Since then, she's been his full-time caregiver, stepping back from Hollywood to give him the love and attention he needed. That wasn't just a pause. It was a powerful, selfless act of motherhood. Now 53 years old, Monica might not be as visible on screen, but her heart, strength, and talent continue to inspire. Wishing her all the peace and blessings she so deeply deserves. After Quincy and Monica parted ways, Monica flew off to Spain to chase her dreams, and Quincy went pro. It wasn't long before he had someone new in his life. Kyra, a flight attendant played by none other than Tyra Banks. We first meet Kyra in one of the most twisted, heart-wrenching scenes in the film. Monica had come to the hospital to see Q after his injury, and just when we thought maybe, just maybe they'd find their way back to each other, boom, Kyra walks in out of nowhere. And not just as some girlfriend. Nope, she's introduced as Quincy's fiancée, and they're getting married in 2 weeks. 2 weeks! The audacity! Kyra's character doesn't get much development, and honestly, it left a lot of us with questions. Like, who is she really? What's her story? How did they even meet? But maybe that was the point, to show just how disconnected Q and Monica had become. As for Tyra Banks, the woman behind Kyra, she had a lot going on at the time. She was 27 when she played the role, and by then, she was already a household name. She'd started acting back in 1993 on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and her film debut came just 2 years later in Higher Learning, a powerful drama where she starred alongside none other than Omar Epps himself. She also had a recurring role on New York Undercover, giving us even more reason to keep watching. After Love and Basketball, Tyra didn't slow down one bit. In 2003, she created and hosted the iconic America's Next Top Model, a show that became a cultural phenomenon. She didn't just build a brand, she cemented a legacy. Today, Tyra's not as active in the spotlight as she once was, but let's be real, time catches up with all of us. She's now 51 years old, married, and a proud mom to one child. Whether she's walking a runway, hosting a show, or dropping into a scene like she did in Love and Basketball, Tyra Banks always leaves an impression. And lastly, we have the reporter. You know, the guy with the microphone, asking Quincy those questions after his games and popping up during the pro scenes. Played by James Dumont, this reporter wasn't just there to fill space. He brought a bit of realism to Love and Basketball, giving us a taste of the pressure and attention that come with being a rising star. Sure, his screen time was short, but he added a layer of authenticity that made those moments feel real. Sometimes it's the little details that stick with you. James Dumont was 35 years old back then, already working steadily in Hollywood. This role wasn't his big break, but it was one of those stepping stones that kept his career moving forward. After Love and Basketball, James went on to pop up in all kinds of projects, like Catch Me If You Can, Jurassic World, and Deepwater Horizon. James is 59 years old and still going strong in the industry. He's racked up over 160 film and TV credits, playing everything from a hard-nosed lawyer to a small-town sheriff. Whether his role is big or small, he brings a grounded, genuine energy to the screen. So, the next time you watch Love and Basketball, take a second to appreciate the guy with the mic. He might not be a headliner, but he's one of those steady, reliable actors who help make the story feel real. Love and Basketball gave us passion, pain, and plenty of plays, both on and off the court. Whether you've been Team Monica from the jump or you're just realizing Quincy was the real foul all along, this film still hits deep. Thanks for tuning into Movie Bites, where we break down the stories, the stars, and the real people behind the screen. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a rewind. Catch you next time.